Good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're watching this live stream or even this recording. My name is James Pereira, and today I would like to talk to you about fear, specifically handling fear. Now, before I go any further, let me just take you on a trip back to 1986, just to make sure that everything's in context on the story that I'm going to reveal soon. So in 1986, I graduated from the university, and I was pretty gung-ho, excited to hit the world. And when I got back home, I started submitting applications to tens or dozens of companies, and week after week I was sending applications. And here I was, a young 24-year-old, thinking that with my formidable weapon, which was a certificate, that I will be able to get all the HR managers tumbling over themselves to employ me. After 1 month, I went for the first interview. No job. Second month, another interview. Same story, no job as well. And this kept going for 6 months. And eventually, to cut a long story short, I decided to take up a sales job. That was my first job, and that was my first foray into sales. And that was with this Grolier International, and I was selling the Encyclopedia Americana as well as the Disney children's series of books for early education and the Grolier Management series for managers. And as a salesperson selling encyclopedias, it is 100% commission, which means I am technically an entrepreneur. And I was doing that for a short while, probably about half a year, and eventually joined a pharmaceutical company. Now, as a pharmaceutical sales rep, I was basically an employee. And that's what I was doing for 22 years. I was an employee for 22 years. And in 2008, probably because of a midlife crisis, I decided to go and become an entrepreneur. I ditched the high-paying job that I was in and became an entrepreneur. Peddling healthcare advice online. I was an online marketer. I was doing that for 1.5 years. The income was insufficient, so I had to become an employee again, and this time in an academic institution, which I was doing for about 24 months. And I teamed up with another institution, academic institution, and we decided to set up a division that is conducting corporate training. And I was doing that for about 6 months, and those guys ran out of money. And back to being an entrepreneur. And this time, since 2013, I've been doing this career as a consultant, trainer, and coach in the sales and leadership arena. Now, you would think that after 30 years being an entrepreneur, being an employee, and again as an entrepreneur and an employee, and now finally as an entrepreneur, I'll be used to handling whatever comes my way. A couple of days ago, my son dropped a bombshell. He's 24 years old, and he told me that he had submitted his announcement to his boss that he was leaving the company. And this is a job that he has been in since June last year. And when I asked him what he was going to do, he said that, well, he was going to be an entrepreneur. Now, you would think that being an entrepreneur, it would have been easy for me, but I had a certain amount of fear that it may not work out for him. Because being an entrepreneur, I know that life is not easy. It's like a roller coaster. You have very high months, you have low months, and so on. And of course, I didn't want to reveal my fear to him, so I asked him, like a coach, do you know what the risks are? And he said, yes. I asked him, do you know that it will be several months or weeks before you start seeing an income? He said, yes. And I left it at that. I remember Amelia Earhart saying many years ago, of course, that you should not interrupt a person. Let me just pull that up. Just give me a while. I have it here on my computer. Yeah, never interrupt someone doing something you said couldn't be done. That's what she said. And that hit me at the right time. So I did not put any fear into him. I was not trying to be a wet blanket. And you would think that it was my experience as an entrepreneur that drove him into this entrepreneurial field. Not at all. What actually happened is that when he had graduated from high school, before he entered university, he was actually working part-time as a salesperson, and he was selling Sony televisions in a department store. And he was pretty good, or rather very good in what he was doing. Good enough to the extent that Sony in Malaysia had decided to sponsor him to the US to further his sales skills or product skills. But he couldn't take up the offer because he was going to join the university. Now, that's one. Number two, after he had graduated, after he had completed his internship, while waiting for a job, he approached some guys who were selling t-shirts, and he was a freelance t-shirt salesperson for them, and he managed to sell tens of thousands of t-shirts and made pretty good money. And his bank account is pretty big because of this. So that was his second foray, and he was successful in that as well. By the way, my son's name is Jared. And Jared has probably had this entrepreneurship itch in him. And I don't think it came from me, it's probably from his mother. So his mother's genes are flowing in him. Now, Jared may not know this because his mother passed away when he was 5, but I can see her entrepreneurship thriving in him. And now, once again, he wants to become an entrepreneur. And I think, as a parent, it's great that we encourage our children not to put fear into them. And talking about fear, Ralph Waldo Emerson mentioned this: fear defeats more people than any one thing in the world. That's what stops us. And fear is not just a word, it's also an acronym. FEAR stands for two things: face everything and run, or face everything and rise. You decide whether you want to run or you want to rise when you are confronted with fear. And W. Clement Stone said, the only way that you can handle fear is not by thinking, which is what most people would think. They would sit down and psych themselves in order to give them the courage to overcome fear. But thinking, meditation, or even prayer will not help you overcome your fear. Yeah, maybe meditation as well as prayer can give you a certain amount of impetus. But at the end of the day, what Clement Stone says is that it is action that overcomes fear. You have to take that first step. So that's my input for today, and I hope you enjoyed this. And although Clement Stone says that thinking will not overcome fear, but overcoming fear is also based on a certain mindset. And in order for you to get the right mindset, you need to prep your mind every day. And there's a link above this video, or maybe even below this video, where you can access challenging quotes, inspiring quotes, and motivational quotes. There are 366 of this. If you click on the link, you will gain access to immediately. That's it from me. Bye-bye. Good night, good afternoon, good day.